making sure you're okay. Good evening and welcome to the school board Board of Education meeting on this Monday, January 24th, 2022. I want to remind everybody to silence your electronic devices and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start with the superintendent's report.
All right, good evening. A few things on our report just to inform the board or remind the board about. We had our first community engagement team meeting last week. Very good turnout. The team was engaged throughout the evening. The meeting was productive and participation was fantastic. We did do an exit survey, which I shared with the board, and the feedback we got was very positive as well. So we're excited about that as our first meeting as we start to define where we're going to take this team. But we're excited about this community partnership and the way it started, and we hope will continue. Wanted to let you know that we applied for Utica National, who's our insurance carrier's School Safety Excellence Award. We do this every year. And once again, for like the 100th straight year, Aaron and his team have achieved titanium with honors level. So we've gotten the highest level again. And you can see from what Utica National wrote, you've demonstrated your desire to create a safe and secure learning environment for the children of your district, an enjoyable, productive work environment for your staff, and a comfortable, pleasant experience for visitors to your district. In last week's board update, I actually sent you the application, which I don't know if I've ever done, and it made me realize when I looked at it, I don't know if I've ever shared it, the amount of work that goes into it and the detail that is involved in that report is pretty extensive. It's not a simple rubber stamp of, there are insurance carriers, so they give us an award to make us feel good. It is a process, and Sam Beardsley from Questar, who's our Questar specialist, and Aaron and his folks spend a great deal of time, obviously through the year, doing the work and then being able to report on it in that application. So thankful to them and the work they do. And again, I'm not even sure what number of year in a row we've gotten that award. PFOA update. So last week, all the tanks at Algonquin were flushed. This is in conjunction with our representatives at the county level and the state level. Everything's been flushed and backwashed. We're waiting for results of those samples. If the samples are negative for the contaminants and PFOA, then we're going to put the new system into operation. The water still cannot be used for drinking because there's a storage tank there that's filled with raw water. So we're still going through this process. We have to flush the system, then continue using it for toilet flushing and washing and all that part. Eventually, once we get to that spot, we will be able to test again for PFOAs, and that's done through various locations. And then once it's actually not detectable in the water at the school, and we have county DOH approval, the water can be used for drinking. So that summary is in italics because that was essentially a summary from our engineer who provided the update for us. Important thing there is we're going to continue to remain on the bottled water until we meet the levels that are acceptable and that we've met all the state guidelines. So that is well underway. We've made all the benchmarks we've been looking for. We know this process takes some time, but the system is installed and is getting closer and closer to being online. We get a yearly report from the New York State Comptroller, monitors our fiscal stress. And without going into the details, that is very good news. They mark you on couple of categories there in our score designation for fiscal stress and environmental stress with no designation. So that's very good news, another positive. And then we have distributed our supply of KN95 masks, which we received. They came to us from the county. I believe they came from the state to the county. We've extended those masks to staff and to students at the secondary level. They're too big for students at the elementary level. So we've ordered a box for each elementary school. Once we receive them, we'll get the word out and see who wants them and distribute those as necessary. If we need more, certainly we'll get them. But we have tried to provide the most current and then safest mask for folks that we can. And thankful for the donation that we received that enabled us to do this without any cost to the taxpayers. Any questions on the news and updates?
Just real quick, on the PFOA, have they given you any kind of timeline, like in terms of how long the testing, like, what does it look like? Are we talking weeks, months, any idea?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know for sure, definitely not months. I think we're in the weeks category. Once these results come back, again, assuming everything is working and functioning, that obviously will speed it up quite a bit. So we're at the kind of, it's sort of that hurry up and wait approach. You have to do it and test and you wait for results. And so we're walking through the process, but I think at this point, definitely we were hoping for January to be up and running. So we're, I guess, up and running. We're just not online for drinking. So we're getting there. But any other questions? All right. Thanks to Brian Radowitz for this video once again. Wanted to point out something I had mentioned to the board, I don't think, is we did that new teacher check-in. That's the first time we've done that. It came from a professional development session I attended, and then Matt and Kim were able to implement. What we really wanted to do is, and it was a great year to do it, we hired a lot of new teachers this year. And we felt it was important to check in with them in a more kind of formal way, but also more of a supportive way. So again, something we've never done before. We invited them all to Algonquin, had some kind of station rotation type stuff they did to answer some questions, kind of get to meet some of their colleagues who in some cases they haven't met at all before, and provide us some feedback in terms of their experience so far, which is very helpful to us because a lot of times we hire and then in the district office we sometimes don't really see them formally except for passing them in the hallway or the formal observation. So it was a really nice way for us to check in with them and also to let them know that they're supported and that we're looking out for them on our end as well. It's something we would like to expand, and we've talked about it at the very beginning stages, but actually doing these type of check-ins for more than just first-year staff, but maybe grouping people in layers. So maybe, years 2 through 4, the non-tenured folks, maybe years 5 through 10, 10 through 20, 20 and more, something like that. It'd be optional and voluntary, but a chance for teachers who want to be able to come in and kind of check in so we get an idea from the people in the trenches about their experience and help us to know how we can better support them. So we are hoping to build and grow that. And then the other thing I just realized, because it just happened when I went to visit the high school this afternoon, the girls basketball team started a few years ago a recognition of a teacher, and it took a little pause with COVID. They're actually doing it again, and tomorrow night's the first one. I think my years are going to be off now, so it's been 2 years since they've done one, and I saw the program. It's just such a cool thing. So each student on the team in the program picks a teacher who's had an influence on them. The teacher's invited, and the program is written by the students, and it's just a cool event. So if you're around tomorrow, it's a really nice combination of the academics and the athletic side, and that's done in between the JV and the varsity game, so right around 6 o'clock, I believe. All right. Last but not least, the third of the 3 levels. You heard from the elementary and the middle school learning teams, and tonight we turn it over to the high school for their building learning team presentation. Thank you to you. This is, I think, the biggest team we've had come, so thank you to you folks for being here, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you guys want to come up with? Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. I think most folks know me by now, but just for purposes of people who might be watching, I'm Heath Keeley, the principal at Averill Park High School. We're here tonight to spend hopefully about 10 minutes just giving you some updates about the work that we've been engaged in this year at the high school, specifically our building-wide objectives, which we align with your goals, right? Our goals for the district as a K-12 program. I have with me tonight both some administrators along with myself and members of our building learning team, which is again our teacher leaders. So we have Mrs. Lynch, who's one of our assistant principals at the high school. We also have Mrs. Mean, another assistant principal here at the high school. We have Mr. Jeff Brown, who is our teacher leader for the world language program and a French teacher at the high school. And we also have Mrs. Yost, who is here as our high school library media specialist and also the teacher leader for the K-12 library program. So tonight, we really are going to focus on the work that we've been doing at the high school throughout the course of the 21-22 school year, and really the objectives that we have and the things that we would like to achieve with our time as an organization for our kids this year. We always align the work that we're doing at the building level with our board goals because we want to make sure that we're working in the same direction. We want to make sure that our energies are aligned with where it is that we want to go as a district. So in the high school's framework, we'll be talking a little bit about college and career readiness, which for us is going to be a focus on an objective that has to do with student performance, particularly after coming out of the pandemic and the challenges which we faced over the course of the past 2 years. We really wanted to make sure that our objectives this year focused in on really getting our kids back up to speed with their academic performance. We know the past 2 years have been very hard. When it comes to goal number 2 about engagement, we saw the same pattern. Over the past 2 years, while we've been hybrid and we've been remote, we know that our students have had difficulty with remaining connected in school. So we put a lot of energy into our second objective, which really will be focusing on getting our kids engaged with academic or with athletics and with extracurricular activities at the high school this year. And finally, the board had set a goal about being digitally fluent in the 21st century framework and to be productively and safely functioning in a technology-influenced society. So we have a goal this year that we'll be sharing with you, which really connects to a tool that's very important, and that's School Tool, and using that in a way that will help to really leverage our connection with kids. So we're going to go through some of those goals today. In terms of how we get this work done, we think one of the most important things we're doing this year is working with our teacher leaders in a model that is a professional learning community, right? And in the professional learning community model, we want to make sure that we're really leveraging our professional time together to collaborate. So we want our teachers and our teams at all levels throughout the high school to be focused on the right work, the work that's going to make the biggest difference for our kids in terms of our goals. So this is where I'm going to pass off to Mr. Brown, and he's going to talk a little bit about professional learning communities and how they influenced and impact our teacher leaders in the high school.
If I do make a mistake here, being an old dog and having a little trouble with new tricks, I expect Mr. Hayden or Mr. Keeley or anybody else could kind of correct me. But the last time I used the term paradigm shift was in college. But I've been using it more and more since the PLCs came on board to us. And I just want to mention, what does it mean to me as a teacher at the high school and maybe to other people? You see, number one, what do we want for students to know and learn? It used to be, what did I want my students to learn? And I think the we is very important because now it's very much of a departmental question and not just me in my classroom with my door closed. How do we know that they know this or they learned this? Again, it used to be more of a single teacher concern rather than a team concern. And the professional learning community is just that, it is a community. Number 3, what do we do when they don't know? That's more than ever a departmental concern. And number 4, what do we do if they already know it? Well, coincidentally, New York State Department of Education is introducing new standards for world languages. And they're going to be here before we know it. They're going to be starting down in the middle school in 2023. So those new standards in conjunction with professional learning communities are really going to come together and work in tandem quite nicely to make sure we are a cohesive team in the world language department at least, and I'm expecting in other departments as well. Yes. And these are the attributes as I know them. And as the term I use with professional learning communities is nebulous. And maybe that's because I'm an old dog, or maybe because brain isn't working as well as it used to, but it's a little unclear to me still. That's why it's been very helpful to have Jason Andrews, who has been able to do some very interesting, approachable, and clear presentations to us. It is a shared mission. It's a verb, not a noun. It's not a program, it's what we're doing. It's a lifestyle, and as Dr. Andrews said, it's never crossed off the list. We have collaborative teams, and as I said, I'll be using I less often and we much more often. Collective inquiry is that we are going to be listening to each other a lot more often than we have been able to. Just today, after the faculty meeting, we did meet in our teams, in our departments, and we were doing a lot more listening to each other, I think, than we have in the past. We always have listened, we always have done these types of things. I think we're doing it more often. Action-oriented and continuous improvement, with enough superintendent conference days dedicated to this and department meetings dedicated to this, it will start to take shape, and teachers will be able to take action and be more nimble, I think, in our adjustments. And in terms of results, again, with this combination of the New York State Department of Education new standards for world language specifically, that's going to work very well together with us to accomplish sort of these two tasks at the same time. So it's actually falling at a very interesting time, at least for world languages and I think other departments. So that's kind of how I see it as a teacher who finds it a bit nebulous and an old dog learning a new trick. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. And so as Jeff had said, this is really the how. So it kind of precedes the what, which is the work that we're going to do. So this whole model of being a professional learning community focuses our organizational energy on the right work. And those 4 critical learning questions help to keep us focused on work that has to do with how our kids are doing and what we can do to help them to do better. So with that frame, at the high school this year, we have 3 very specific objectives. The first is around student performance. And we know that last year was a very big challenge for us with regards to student performance. So in just a few minutes, Christina is going to really dig into that first goal around student performance, just to let you know how it's going. Our second building objective is around engagement in extracurricular and athletic activities. Again, coming out of the pandemic, coming out of the past 2 years, we really want to make sure that we're re-engaging our kids in the school community. And finally, and Mrs. Leach is going to talk a little bit about our objective, the third objective, which is increasing the number of students and parents who are engaging with School Tool as a mechanism through which to track their progress. This is going to be an interesting story because our dialogue about what we wanted to do with this goal in the summer looks very different than it does right now. We learned quite a bit in the first semester. So we're going to take a couple minutes now for a person to kind of dig into each one of these objectives with you and just explain how it's going. I think we start with Mrs. Mean with objective number 1.
Thank you. So as the team already stated, the building objective 1 goes back to that first board goal of college and career ready. So we looked at our history just a bit with the 2021 school year. At that point, 78% of our students at the end of the year had successfully passed all of their classes. Our goal coming into this year is we are on wanting to continually improve. We set a target of 82% of our students being able to successfully pass all their classes at the end of this year. So in order to do that, we have several action steps that we have put in place this year to get us there. So some of those include looking at and retooling our IST, which is our instructional support team, and our student support team, the SST, and our interventions where we help kids that need an extra boost. So all of those structures we've adapted and adjusted to our student needs. We've also had put in place our ALTs, which are our individual teacher leader-led academic teams and our elective teams to meet and look at every 5 weeks the data that is pulled every 5 weeks, the progress reports and report cards, to determine who might need to be referred to IST, SST, interventions, what they're doing in their own classrooms to hit those needs that those kids individually need. And then also they're looking at right now, this Friday, our essential standards, identifying what are those key concepts that everybody agrees upon in each department that are targeted things that everybody is going to hit no matter which teacher you have instructionally. And then as well, we have a menu we're working on currently with our SST team
of having a menu of all the different tiers of intervention so that we can look at that immediately and see what is going to fit for each student's individual needs. So beyond that, we went into a deeper dive with all of the data specifically. So we looked at 2 key points. This slide will address students that failed 1 or more classes at the end of Q1, and the next slide will address more than 3 classes at the end of Q1. So the trend, and I won't go through all the data because you can review that at your leisure, but you can see last year, 25% of our kids were at risk, failing at least 1 course, 75% were passing all their classes. And then we broke it down into subgroups by each grade level. And when we looked at this year's data, all we have right now obviously is Q1. We're closing out Q2 at the end of this week, that we had 20%. So we did see that reduction, and that speaks to the interventions and the things that we've put in place, that we are helping our kids meet with more success. And again, you can look at each individual grade level, and that trend followed through with each grade level. And interestingly enough, grades 9 and 10, the 2 grade levels that were most significantly impacted by the pandemic, are the 2 that are still most at risk, and they're almost head-to-head with their data. Our seniors have the smallest percentage, and they're the only group that's actually gone through an entire year in this building with no interruption. And then we looked at Q1, but with 3 or more courses that students did not successfully meet with at the end of Q1. And last year, again, that same trend, the percentages were higher in the 2021 school year than they are currently in the 21-22 school year. And again, by grade levels, you see it kind of ebbs and flows, but the seniors are most successful, and our underclassmen are the ones that are struggling the most. So those are the trends that we see, and you had the data specifically for each grade level.
Thank you, Christina. And, you know, one of the things that's important to keep in mind as you look at this is if we had gone back pre-pandemic, right, we were typically a school where 90% of our students were passing all of their classes most of the time. So that's a trend that we would have seen pre-pandemic. There were points during the pandemic when we were hybrid and remote where we were seeing only 75% or 70% of our students passing all of their classes. So we're seeing growth over last year, which is good, but we still have work to do to get ourselves to a place where we were prior to the pandemic and prior to the time that we've been away from our kids in the modality of all in-person instruction. So it's a really great piece of progress that we're seeing, but we still want to continue to go because we have work to recover from what we've experienced over the past 2 years. With that said, I'd like to pass off to Mrs. Yost, who's going to talk about extracurricular activities.
Something near and dear to my heart. So this building objective ties into wanting our students to be more involved and proactive in their community activities. That goes with our district goal. Our goal for this year is to get 80% of our students involved in some sort of extracurricular activity, clubs, sports, music programs, things of that nature. As Mr. Kila said, you know, the pandemic kind of put a crimp in that for a lot of kids. And so I know personally, I sponsored 4 clubs, and you know, the participation is not what it was, but it's getting better. So things that we are doing is on the high school webpage, there's a button that parents and students from home, you know, especially like, you know, the younger kids coming in, they can just click on the button and see the catalog of all the different offerings that we have. And I can speak for kids coming up from Algonquin this year. We never had an anime club, but I had 2 freshmen come to me beginning of the year saying, Mrs. Yost, we really love anime. Let's start a club. And they did, and it's one of my most successful clubs. I have 25 kids that come in every other week. And we discuss anime, we talk about anime, we dress up like anime, we watch anime, we read anime, we draw anime. And they just have a blast with it. So we have a club and activity fair for our new entrants, a freshman orientation project that I know I've gotten a lot of my club participants from that orientation. Social media posts, Brian Radowitz, once again, is really good about putting it on Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Club activities that we're doing to hopefully get kids motivated to perhaps join a club that they might not have thought about or something like that. We've got a brochure of our clubs, and we're collecting and analyzing the data. That's something really important here. You know, you need to be data driven when you're making your decisions, and if we're going to get to that 80%, we're going to need some data. I know we have an attendance sheet for all of our clubs, and all of the club advisors take attendance for every meeting, so that we'll have that data to see, you know, how many kids are participating, and are we gaining momentum? Are we getting more kids? I know the lack of after-school buses put a big crimp in our numbers, and so hopefully we'll get to our 80%, but I know my clubs, you know, fell right off when, you know, like I said, I had a lot of freshmen sign up and they didn't have transportation. So hopefully now that we've got some more after-school transportation, those numbers will increase. Oh, and the Easy Hall Pass system, I'm super excited about. It's going to be an electronics, well, the kids will have, you know, their devices, and a teacher can send a student, say, a costume teacher, to the library, and they'll put it into the software. It goes on the student's phone, so they have a hall pass that's right on their phone. So if a hall manager sees them in the hallway, they can just show them. It says what time they left, so we know, you know, are they dawdling, are they taking the long way upstairs and down to get there, or are they going straight to where they need to be? I know I write at least 100 passes a day, so I'm really excited about that. You can do the next one, right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, so our baseline data, our baseline started this year, basically. So 56% of our students are participating in at least one after-school activity, as you can see. It's not quite the 80%, but like I said, I think it's going to get better now that we have some after-school buses, and you know, we put into place all of those other strategies that we're using to try to get more kids involved.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you to Jen. And again, I also want to say thank you to Kristen Card and to
Yeah.
Mrs. Mean, because in truth, previous to the pandemic, we had a lot of data about students who were involved in athletics, because there's team rosters and you're really definitive sources of knowing how many kids are doing those sorts of things. As we embarked on this year, we didn't necessarily have a system to know how many students school-wide were engaged in an array of different extracurricular activities. So Mrs. Mean worked with Kristen Card. We've come up with an internal system and structure to be able to really track how many students are in clubs and what that looks like in terms of engagement over time. So based off of that work, we're really going to be able to dive into this and look at it closely as we move through this year and beyond. So again, really great job to those guys. Our final objective has to do with increasing engagement with School Tool, and I'm going to introduce Mrs. Leach for that.
Good evening. So this summer, as we sat down and we thought about digital fluency and how we wanted to kind of craft a goal, we really thought about the homeschool connection and how we wanted our kids and our parents to be accessing their grades on our digital platforms. And our digital platform is School Tool. So initially our goal was to increase the number of parents and students accessing School Tool for monitoring progress reports and grade reporting, you know, the 10-week grade reporting. When I show you the next slide, you're going to know why we might have changed our progress or our intent. So we got about a month into school and we looked at our data and we realized that our students and our parents are not really accessing their School Tool information. And we felt like we needed to do something in the moment about that. So we have chosen to mail out all our report cards. So 100% of our students are going to get their report cards in the mail. We win that goal, but but we needed to do something for our goal. So here's what we've done in our switch in our focus mid-year. So like I said, we sent our report cards home. We use social media posts to promote, you know, here's the grades, you know, here's your information. We do email blasts to our parents. All of our teachers have a Google Classroom where they're sending links home to parents and links home to students. I think rapidly we've seen our students really transition and like that platform. It's easy to use. It's kid friendly. It's teacher friendly. So that's been a shift for us. Obviously, for our at-risk students, we talked about this before, we have our SST and IST. We're constantly looking at data. When the report cards come out in the next month, I'll run data and we'll start bringing those kids up back on our agendas and seeing what else what more support they need. And then we're talking about leveraging our advisory purposefully. And what we mean by that is stopping the kids and holding the kids in advisory and saying, right now we want you to look at your grades. We want you to open your school tool. We want you to look and see what your grades are, where you're at. Because in my office, I do speak to students quite often, and you'll say, what's your grades? And they really don't know. So we want to make sure that they're checking in and seeing and assessing where they're at. So I'm going to show you, is it this one?
Yeah.
So these were when we went initially at the beginning of the year. This is data 5 days within once we released a report card or a progress report. And you can see our data is not that many people looking within 5 days at our school tool information. So that's very problematic for us. So that's why we switched our goal. Am I good?
Thank you. All right, so again, that is an overview, in the context of the board goals and how we're working as a collective organization and how we've translated that to building-wide objectives. And I think you can see there's some pretty significant themes there. Really, when you look at those objectives, we're talking about engagement. We're talking about building back from building back to a pre-pandemic sort of state. Everything is about building back to a place where we were before and hopefully even better. So I put up some things that have been successful this year. You can certainly see them, but I do want to say that I think one of our biggest successes this year has been the ability to return to in-person learning, the ability to sustain that. I think we've seen a tremendous growth in our students and in our building and in the culture of the school just by the fact that we've been able to be back together again. I have to send tremendous kudos to the faculty and the staff at the high school for being so resilient and so dedicated through all the ups and downs to every one of our kids. And our kids are now doing much better. We need to continue on that journey. We need to continue to get them to be doing even better than they are so we can continue to improve. And I also just want to make sure that we thank all of you for the hard work that you've done to support us during these challenging times. Our kids are very fortunate to live in this community. And, I've got to say, we're seeing great things happen. So that's a snapshot of where we're at. And I thank you guys for your time tonight. And if you have any questions, we are here. Dr. Schaefer.
Are there any particular areas of study that show a higher failure rate than others?
Well, our math and our science, Dr. Schaefer, have persistently been areas that have been more challenging for our students across the board. But more so than even a specific content area. If we were to say content, it's certainly those. But what's interesting when you look at it, our ninth graders are always in the biggest, in the heap of trouble, so to speak, as a group. That transition from 8th to 9th grade, you can really see that it's a challenge for a number of our students. So whether we were pre-pandemic or in the pandemic or after the pandemic, the same trend will continue to sort of be there. That 9th graders have a transition, and as you move into 10th, 11th, and 12th, you see the failure rates tend to go down. You see the mastery rates tend to go up. For everybody, mastery is any grade greater than 85 in a course.
That would have been my guess too. Yeah, that being my area, it might be worth a discussion about how there could be work to improve it.
Absolutely, we are on board. We could definitely use the help of that for sure.
Okay, you have my number.
Yes, Dr. Schaefer.
We know where to find you. Thank you for a really fantastic presentation. Every time I hear one of these presentations, I want my kids to start all over again and be part of it. I have a couple of questions. On the first goal, we showed some better percentages in the failure rates. In the conversation, what I thought I heard was that you attributed that to intervention. But I wonder, do you suppose that any of it are these intervention strategies, the timing also with the kids being in person, and how much would you attribute to the kids being back in person? Or is it all intervention, or do you think a mix of both, or, what is your sense of that?
I think the fact that we have returned to in-person learning is probably one of the biggest impactors here. I mean, just from what we've seen, right? Like students really, really struggled with not being able to connect in person, and you saw that in academic performance last year. I mean, the first quarter last year was wonderful because everybody was trying things out. By the time we got to the middle of the year last year, we knew that that was a really significant hazard to our kids in terms of their academic and certainly social and emotional development, right? So I think having come back to in person is the biggest snap. I do, however, believe that we're seeing some learning gaps and some skill gaps that students have, even just habits of mind like resiliency and persistence, some things that students have had trouble with as they've transitioned back into school. So I think what we're seeing are improvements because we're actually, again, engaged, but at the same time, our assistant principals and our student support services team are really working hard to upgrade our intervention services, to upgrade how we identify students. And our teacher leader teams are every 5 weeks looking at their student performance data within the team, and they're setting goals and targets as to how they can increase student performance within their own team every 5 weeks.
That was really the sense that I kind of felt, that we really need, obviously, we all agree that the kids really need to be back. But I'm grateful that you have all of these things, the SEL in place, as well as the learning supports and the interventions, as well as the kids being here and engaged. Another quick question was about the activity clubs and activity fair. Just from my own experience, my children tend to not take initiative toward anything unless pushed into it, and then they like it. So I wonder, is this community engagement kind of activity fair, is it like a mandatory part of a freshman orientation, or is it, hey, you can come if you want to and see what there is?
So I would say as a baseline, it's a mandatory part of 9th grade orientation, but 9th grade orientation in and of itself, to be perfectly transparent, isn't always attended by everyone, right? So it's definitely an experience that every student will have at least once as they go through their high school career. But we've alluded, though it's not embedded explicitly here in these goals, to the fact that we want to really start to leverage our advisory time. We have that 20 to 25 minutes each day where we stop classes. We do foresee ourselves being able to do some of these events during advisory. And right now we're going very slowly with advisory because of our pandemic transition back to, having that kind of movement around the building, et cetera. But yes, it is something that students experience, and we've got some thoughts in the next year or two as we continue with advisory as to how we can use that time in the school day so that everybody has that experience.
Because sometimes it's just a matter of at least I know with my kids, if they had a choice to even go to the activity fair, they wouldn't even go, so they wouldn't even know what was out there unless they were told they had to. They're thankfully rule followers.
Right.
And finally, again, I just want to thank you for a really fabulous presentation, and I look forward to hearing some follow-ups on these percentages, maybe at the end of the year or partway through into next year to see the progress that's being made.
Absolutely.
Thank
You
you
got
so
it. Thank you. Absolutely.
So my question actually sort of tags right onto that. Of just the 78 to 82, what informed, was it like, yeah, that seems like enough? Or where'd that number come from?
It was a team decision. It was the building learning team. So our group of teacher leaders sitting together over the summer and thinking, how can we set an objective that we know will get us moving in the right direction, that we're pretty sure we can obtain to give us some momentum. The truth of the matter is, we all like to see ourselves at the end of the year far exceed that, right? But it's just a measurable target to give us something to aim for and to have a metric with which to measure how well we're doing. I think it would be fantastic if we could not only meet, but obviously exceed that target, right? All the way. Absolutely.
Okay, well then, no, that's good. I mean, it sounds like it came a little bit from your what you guys experienced in the past. So that's important. I wrote some other stuff down. Dr. Schaefer actually kind of covered that it definitely sort of kind of comes right off the screen page. That the AMS to APH, and I remember it wasn't a better loss for me. And so is do you guys have plans for more work, sort of interaction, going down into AMS and working with them before they get there? Have you looked at tactics yet?
No, that's a great question. Absolutely. These guys have been working on a number of different new ways to start to really engage our 8th graders as they come into 9th grade. I will say, however, one of the things that we have planned for this spring that's a little bit different is that our teacher leaders at the 9th grade level are going to go down this spring and start spending time with the teachers at the 8th grade level, just to begin to identify the trends and the behaviors and the academic propensities that they're seeing in students, and also so that we can really clearly identify the students that we need to, from the first day of high school, really start to engage with and start to provide support to. I know that's one thing that just immediately comes to mind because we're working on it right now, but we are working to continue to get those connections in place, both academically, socially, emotionally, and also socially,
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get this sense that the social emotional is a big part of that work. And then, somewhere probably you guys have the data or are working towards it. The idea of, do you have 8th graders who are performing well, and how do those kids do as 9th graders versus kids who've sort of consistently been sort of doing what they can, coming down the middle, and then they keep coming down the middle. So, can you tease out like, oh my God, high school, I can't deal with it, or
Right.
right? I should find words for this, but is it like, do you have, is it academic? Is it social emotional? Is it some combination? And the last thing I promise, and I'm also like huge thumbs up for clubs and activities. My kids love that. I'm hoping it's all like going like gangbusters when my kids get to AP. It's gonna be well. But that's huge definitely for my 10-year-olds. I appreciate that. It sounds like when you guys do the PLCs and the teach, like you group subject matter together, so you have like the language, and that ensures kind of a smooth curriculum delivery and goals and process between science teacher A, science teacher B, not to make you guys faceless, your people. But I mean, I remember at my school, which was a very good school, but the difference between physics teacher A and physics teacher B, like if you got physics teacher B, you were kind of like toast, and the kids who got physics teacher A were like heading to MIT. And so like smoothing out that, not that I want to bring it down, but it seems like the PLC framework helps quell some
Level the playing field.
level, to ensure quality control across.
It does. And yes, the teams are working really hard to be cohesive, to collaborate, to be consistent, right, within specific content areas. And then what we're doing with our faculty meetings when everyone's together is we're allowing for that collaboration to happen between departments. That way different departments and different teams that have worked in isolation, right, during their department time have an opportunity to share with other teams throughout the building what they're doing, what they're finding that's working, what's not working, et cetera. So the whole process is about collaboration, sharing best practices, and really increasing the effective efficacy of everyone within our teams and our schools.
Thank you very much. That actually what you just said reminded me of the efficacy chart from AMS's presentation last time. So was that AMS's presentation? Anyway, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Seriously. I want to go.
Megan and then back to that.
Oh, you want to go first? As one of, I think, only 2 people utilizing school tool on a regular basis.
I must be the other one.
I'm a huge advocate for school tool. I use it at the middle school level, at the high school level, just, keeping up and tracking and saying, make sure you check it because, you can chart your averages and keep up with your grades and all of that. Along the lines of that 8th to 9th grade transition, has there been any discussion about additional sort of school community activities to ease them through that transition so there's not a gap, so much of like an exit and then an entrance, but more of just an easier incline into the high school life?
We're definitely open to moving in that direction. I will say, previous to the pandemic, we had started some of that transition in stages. So you have a January in 8th grade, incoming 8th grade orientation, which then turns into a June before they coming back over to the high school and visiting us during Regents Week and doing tours and meeting with teachers. And then you have a summer program previous to opening, which really, we had a lot of that previous to the pandemic, and we kind of cut that back. We will re-expand that as we kind of, regain our momentum and our ability to kind of be together and have groups and crowds and events. And so definitely we're going to head back in that direction.
And not all our students come from AMS, so that's
Right.
that's
Yeah.
another challenge. So they come from
Gardner Dickinson,
four different schools,
Parker,
yeah. So.
Susan O'Gill Taylor.
I just wanted to thank you all very much again for the great presentation that you just did. And I was just gonna piggyback on what Megan said. I'm probably like part of the 0.02% that looks at school. And it's only because my daughter is actually starting to do good this year, whereas during the pandemic, she wasn't. So I'm really appreciative that we're back in school. And the report cards being sent home, I think, is huge. And I know years ago we cut back because of cost and whatnot, but I think it's important because so many parents are so busy and, with multiple kids, different things, our jobs, our lives, and then we do forget to check school tool. And I think having that come home is so important, and I appreciate that because even though I do access school tool, I would probably not realize it's the end of the quarter, and I would be like checking it, and I'd be like still looking for Q2 averages, and I'd be on Q3 or something. So I appreciate that. And then I was a huge club at activities. I played sports in high school, all three, and I think it's so important. My kids don't do clubs, which I really don't like that they don't do that. But I think it's so great how many different options we have and so many different interests for different kids. So there's not like a pigeonhole one variety of thing, there's all different things for all different children, which is really important. And I think being able to be back in school and doing those things are so important. I'm so glad that we're bringing back, the prom and the things that kids really did miss, because that's it's just a big thing, when you're that age. And also the pass system. So I've heard about this from my daughter. Some kids are like, they're gonna watch us not. Oh yes. I know. I was a really good kid in high school, but somehow I remember having a booklet of passes somehow in my backpack. And I kind of wrote my own all the time. I would always go down to the band room and kind of hang out. Don't judge. I don't know what I was doing down there. Hanging out in the band room, because I kind of was in band. But I think it is important to keep them accountable, and if they don't have a device, I'm guessing that they still get the paper pass, and right.
Yeah.
So.
They can use their Chromebooks.
Oh,
And everybody
perfect.
has one of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was just my question, but I think it is important because
We're going to do
people like
our,
me went broke back in the day.
we're going to do our training for students and staff in February, and we hope to have this pilot up and running first couple of weeks of March. So we'll be able to kind of test the waters from March until the end of the school year, do some assessment and see how it works. It ties in nicely to advisory because really the problem is you have 20, 25 minutes to get kids to all the clubs and activities they want. We're spending 10 of those minutes writing passes, right? So we kind of put it in there
more
because
efficient.
this system will mean we can get more kids to more places more efficiently and let them go do what they want to do at the time, right? Which is to engage. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks again.
I just wanted to say thank you also, because I think it was a great presentation. I like very much that you are so frequently looking at the data. In my world, when we assess programs, we call it test, measure, adjust. And that's exactly what you guys are doing, and on the frequency that I think is necessary, especially for those kids that are failing classes and keeping track of those. And that you are willing to say, all right, let's try something different because we need to do something different. The numbers are not changing or whatever. So I think that's fantastic. And I appreciate you guys always keeping an eye on that ball to make sure we stay afloat well. So thank you. Does anybody have any other questions or comments for this team? Doug?
One thing, I've heard great things about the advisory time. The only thing I'm afraid of is that my granddaughter tends to monopolize the teacher's time. But it's a wonderful opportunity for them to communicate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that jumped out at me too, that I think it's important for the board to hear and to recognize, especially as we go into budget season. At one point, when I first started, our goal number 3 was the data piece, but it was institution that, and using that data effectively to guide what we do. And we moved away from that goal because we said that we believe that was institutionalized. And I think a presentation like this really shows how the district has become more and more data focused and data driven, which is really important. It's something we set out to do, and this team does a great job of it. And Matt's been leading the charge on it from the district side, but also we have people in place like Christian Carr, who the district has supported. That's a full-time FTE in the budget. That's real money, and you could very easily, in a time of cutting or thinning things out, put those resources in the classroom. That's where they're needed, and that's where you promote them. But we've been able to keep those type of positions alive and well. And you get someone, like a Kristen, Melissa Wendell-Axe on her side of it with the technology integration, are very good at what they do. So the board support of those positions is very important and very relevant. You can see it in something like this. The second thing is the clubs, which, a few of you mentioned, they did a great job. And Jen is the cheerleader of the all clubs activities. That is again something that, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but over the years has, I believe, literally doubled the budget. Right? I remember talking to Michael about our club budget has gone from, don't hold me to this, around like 50,000 to around like 90 or 95,000, something in those numbers. Over, again, don't hold me to like a 4 or 5 year period type of thing. The board has been able to support those decisions, and I know we always come, and that's a budget line that we look to increase because the stipends cost some money and you roll them over or something. But the board support of that has been very important. And then the number of faculty members that we have that step up to take on these roles is overwhelming and impressive. And in many cases, not in areas that they have any real true interest or passion in, but they're doing it because kids have come to them and asked them to start it. And they need to have a faculty advisor. So in some cases, they are passion type projects, and that's great too. In other cases, it's just people stepping up because someone's walked into the room and said, hey, I want to start a club. Would you be the advisor? And they don't usually say no. And the third part of that, Terry and I have talked a lot about this, is the committee that we have in the contract to evaluate that. I won't say it was broken in a bad way. Everyone was doing the best they can, but it wasn't functioning well. And we really, I think, collaborated and partnered to make that a very highly effective team that really looks at these clubs and looks at what's going on and adjusts stipends appropriately and follows the contract. And that has been very collaborative and collegial in nature. We've made an effort to keep the same people on the committee because there was turnover all the time. In the contract, we expanded it so there's one of each level, so it's a bigger committee, more representative, and that's something I think you're seeing some of the benefits down the line of those things which have been put in place. So I think the board support, again, especially as this is sort of the end of the presentations and the beginning of budget season in February, it is important to kind of keep in your mind because there is a finite amount of resources and increases come at taxpayer expense. There's all these competing and conflicting interests. We totally get that. So it's important to kind of put some of this in context in terms of where that rubber meets the road.
Jim, what I'm grateful for is the diversity among the clubs.
Yes.
A wide range of clubs, and I think that's helped.
It's almost overwhelming when you look at it. The list of clubs is so diverse. It's crazy. I mean, the things that we offer to that point, like Jackie mentioned, of being able to find hopefully something, it gets back to, again, the mission statement of every student every day. We try to find clubs, and the committee talks about clubs that are new and offer someone some way to connect. So that's a great point. There's a very wide range of opportunities out there. That's great. So.
Yeah, there's one. Not for right now, and not for you guys to do because you have got enough on your plate. But I would be curious, and I don't know, Peter, if you have any, I could probably find it myself, but to actually see any research that speaks to the impact that being in a club, participation in a club affects academics. And if it, as you build confidence in a student, or, a student feels heard and they feel present, they feel involved, that gives them more interest in performing academically and engaging academics. I mean, I imagine, that's my hypothesis, I'm sure that there's research out there, but that would be sort of my next step, to go do that.
It's also, being involved in a club or activity is also super important going into college. I was a middle of the road student because I was kind of lazy, but I think I was in pretty much every club they had in our school because I loved extracurricular activities. And honestly, I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I went to a great school, but they basically told me it was my extracurricular involvement because I was more well-rounded. I had so many different things. My grades were, fine. They weren't great. It wasn't top of the class. But that extracurricular is so important for so many other things as well. Maybe even a student isn't, a straight A student, but they are very well-rounded. They like that. Colleges like that. So we're offering our students that ability, which is so important.
Megan, and then Pam.
I was just gonna say, I think that if you look around the halls and you see how our own students interact in their extracurricular activities and what they put into it, if you've attended any of the theatrical performances or if you attend the sport performances and you can really see in their own demeanor and how they're carrying themselves, how much enrichment they're getting out of those activities. So even just in terms of actual statistical research, but I know what I see at home in my own children when they feel, fulfilled in those extra activities. So I think that it is, right in front of in our community, what our kids are getting out of these programs every day.
Just quick to button it all up. In terms of the clubs being important to academics, as you brought up, I would say there must be research that supports that because we have adopted it as one of our 3 goals district-wide and build, and then it goes down to the building level. So being involved in community engagement being one of the major goals it has to be directly related to student success. And secondly, I just want to kind of piggyback on what Jim said. It ties into what Mr. Brown said, and that is with the data-driven, where it's no longer a goal because it's integrated into how we live. That's what you were saying about these goals. You said it's not something. It's a new way of living. It's not something you check off.
Yeah.
So and that's clear in the data goal that we had, where it doesn't need to be identified as a goal anymore because this is the new way that we're doing it. Similar to what you said, like this is the way that we're living. It's not, check this off the list. Okay, we're done with that. So that's all. Thank you.
Good cut.
I think you'll find the data that relates to school activities to academic achievement in the book by Fullen, Going from Good to Great. I don't know how familiar everyone is with that, but I think you'll find references to that in the book.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, high school team.
10 minutes.
If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, please do.
Clearly you don't know us
Fine.
that well.
We will allow you to hang out. Just pick one of us. I'll get it. Okay. Yeah, I'll come on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the superintendent report.
All right, thank you. Another great presentation. That brings us to item number 3, public comment. This public comment is limited to topics on this evening's agenda. Those wishing to address the board are asked to complete the request form and submit it to the board clerk in order to be recognized. 3 minutes per speaker. I have one sheet and it's general comment, so I have no idea whether that is that
It's not related here.
it's not related to items on the agenda. Okay, so when you fill out the form, if you don't have a specific topic, then if you could say not related to items just for future, so we know right off the bat. That'd be great, thank you. Okay, so moving on to item number 4, Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 10th meeting? And seconded by Megan. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Passes, thank you. May I have a motion to approve items number 5 through 8, which would be the consent agendas for business, personnel, special education, and the supplemental consent agenda. Megan and then Ann. Discussion? Ann.
I just had a quick question on 8D, the overnight trip for the varsity wrestling team.
That's actually not,
Oh, you said 8.
8 is a consent supplemental, which was the additional resolution that we received this afternoon.
have a 90.
90 is the,
down.
yeah,
Oh, you pushed it down?
yes.
I didn't
sorry.
realize, I read the thing and I didn't realialize. Okay,
That's where we plugged it in, yes.
okay, got it.
So we can.
So that's on 9.
That's on 9.
Okay, thank you, sorry
So no
about that.
worries. Go ahead, Megan.
I just wanted to recognize our retiring faculty for their years of service and thank them and wish them well in their retirement.
Yes, I was going to also recognize them. It's Susan Knesny, David Lindendaro, Elizabeth McGill, and Terry Welcome. And together, those 4 people represent over 106 years of service to this district. So we wish them all well in their retirement and may it be long and fruitful for them. Yeah, that was quite the impressive number when I looked at it.
Mhm.
Any other discussion on any of these items? All right, hearing none, I'll call it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, on to item number 9, the action
Oh, there
items.
it is, yes, I see it.
So,
I printed this before I got the
yeah,
supplemental.
I know, I did too.
Because
so
I'm a
I
paper
wanted to
person.
recognize- Yes, I hear you. So action 9A would be a motion to approve the agreement with the Center for Disability Services for a one-time only staff training.
You need a motion?
I think Samantha's making a motion
Sorry.
with
I
a
know I did
thumbs up and Megan seconded. Discussion? You guys have anything to add on that? That's a pretty basic one. Okay. So all those in favor? Passes unanimously. 9B, to approve the 21-22 health and welfare contract with the Wine Skill Union Free School District in the amount of $13,091.95 for 19 students attending non-public schools. Do I have a motion? Megan, seconded by Ann. Discussion? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Action item C, I need a motion to approve Alarm and Suppression Incorporated state contract as a selected contract for our capital outlay project for the renovations of the fire alarm system at Algonquin Middle School in the amount of $82,883.43. Megan's making a motion, seconded by Samantha. Discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Passes. And then item number D, a motion to approve the overnight trip for the Averill Park High School varsity wrestling team to participate in the Sectional 2 tournament on Saturday, February 12th, 2022 at the Glens Falls Civic Center. Do I have a motion? Peter, seconded by Ann. Discussion. Ann.
Sorry about that before.
No, don't worry. It's all good.
Yeah. I noticed that, in the wording in the documents that were provided, that, the wrestlers are paying for the hotel. Is there, a cost to the district to have them stay overnight? An additional cost, I should say.
I believe there is. I'm not sure offhand.
The reason why I bring it up is Glens Falls is less than an hour away. What is our parameters in terms of overnight trips? Could you remind us of that?
Yeah, I talked with Mark about that. The reason they typically stay overnight for that is because the weigh-ins are so early in the morning. So they have to, as part of the wrestling process, obviously, they have to weigh in before the meet. So with the sectional championships, as I understand it, if we don't do it that way, they have to get up at, 4 in the morning or whatever, and get here and get up there early enough to get in the weigh-in process. So they have historically stayed overnight because of that. So less about, I guess, the distance, because it is close enough for a drive, but more just in terms of, since it's their final sectional match, to give them the kind of courtesy to be able to have a more regular morning.
Yeah, that makes sense. But in the timeline that they laid out, I thought it said 8 a.m. So I was like, okay, you get up, 6, which is not terrible, but it doesn't say weigh-ins or before, I thought it said 8 a.m. So I didn't know what the parameters were in terms of, when do we allow overnights for something like this and the distance and that kind of thing.
With the cost to the district.
Right, with the cost to the district.
Yeah.
I would assume with such a few number that it will be minimal.
Yeah, I don't think it's extensive, and I'm not sure offhand, I can double check regarding
It's
the
okay, it's
cost of
fine.
the district.
It's fine.
I
I mean,
just-
the weigh-ins, maybe I just blew right by that, but I missed that part, so I was like, well, if it starts at 8 and it's only in Glens Falls, it just seemed to me to be, but that makes sense. So thank you for the extra.
To be honest with you, the discussion Mark and I had was less about that part of it, because it was something they had been doing previously, and it was more in terms of in the COVID world, in terms of steps and precautions and worthwhile. It was more of, when him and I talked, it was more in terms of that and not in terms of that part of it, just because it's something they always had done. So I didn't get into it.
No, I'm always thinking about.
That's right.
It's all about the money.
It's all good. That's why there's 7 members of the board.
That's why we like
Any other?
Well, I was gonna say, so Jim, the first thought that came into my head was, and I'll say it out loud, I assume that COVID protocols there's testing, there's, no one's, they're not all gonna be in a big room right next to a bunch of the other wrestlers, like they're gonna do their thing, and then there's protocols in place that take from our protocols as well
for COVID.
for COVID, yeah.
Yeah, we talked through it, without getting too much into it, there's a lot of, we talked about testing each wrestler before they get on the bus, do we test them in the morning? There's some issues with testing for kids who've already had COVID, so we kind of got into the weeds on that one, and decided that nowadays, February 12th, which Mark and I talked about this last week, February 12th is like 6 months away, you know what I mean? So we're like, let's move in step. We were in agreement on the basics of where we needed to go and supporting it. I know the team wants to go. I know Mark was very supportive. So as we went through it, we kind of said, let's get it on, because with the timing of it in terms of the next meeting agenda and getting it approved as per our policy for overnight trips, it has to be approved. And we said we would kind of kick the details to a later date. There was a lot going on last week, so we wanted to involve the nurses and actually kind of flush some of this out in terms of what was realistic versus what just sounded good. Because originally, so we'll just test everyone, but then as you go down that rabbit hole, there's a lot of stuff there. So it's kind of to be determined in terms of some of the details.
Yeah, I think.
But I don't know if you remember some of the stuff we've done that more last year, I guess, right? Mike Malafont's pretty on top of this stuff in terms of seating charts and precautions and COVID.
Yeah, no, that's good, as long as, somewhere in between.
Yeah, well,
Free for all.
no,
Lockdown.
I don't know too many free-for-alls in the wrestling program.
Exactly.
Like, he's got them, all set. So we'll, as we get closer, we'll flush all that stuff out, but.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like things are changing. kind of fast.
Yeah, yep,
Every day, right?
yep, literally, every day.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call to vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. On to item number 10, our policy items, and I would like to just walk through each one of them as we go, because I know we had discussion back in November about all these, and these were the updated versions based on our discussion, and I just want to confirm that everybody's good as we go through them. So we'll start with policy 0101, the second reading. Does anybody have any comments? I thought all our changes were addressed, and I'm okay to move forward with that one.
Could you give the titles?
Oh, sure. The general neutral single occupancy bathrooms.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
If we're good, and like the changes that we made, are we okay to like make a motion to approve it, or
Yes.
should we do those individually?
I was thinking we could do them all at once at the end.
Oh.
So that we don't have to go through the procedure every time. We can say we just approve all these. Okay. So if we can hold off, I think this would make it a little bit clearer.
That's fine.
Hopefully, yeah,
What
yeah.
the process was.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you for asking. Anybody have anything else? Consider that one good to go then. All right. We can move on to policy 1230, the public comments at board meetings.
I was happy to see the additions to it. Gives us an opportunity to relate somewhat to public speakers. And I think that's a move in a very positive direction and would facilitate communication with the public.
Agreed. Okay, so you're okay with this one?
Yes.
Anybody have any other additional comments on that one? Okay, good. We will move, oh, that also included, the exhibit. So, sorry about that. So 2030E is a public comment at board meetings exhibit. Did anybody have any questions on that? I'm sorry, I kind of lumped those two together. So I had a note on that one, Doug, that your comment addressed my note, so nobody should say it, so that's why I lumped them together. So if we're good with that one too, everybody? All right, we'll move on to policy 1530 for smoking, vaping, and other tobacco use on school premises. I think all our comments on that one were addressed and accepted as appropriate. Anyone else? Okay, then move forward. Good? Okay. Move on to policy 2342, agenda preparation and dissemination. Go ahead again.
The only thing I found on this one was when they cleaned it up in the last paragraph, they left that closed parentheses after district clerk. That's no longer needed
Right.
because we cleaned that up.
Yeah, we need to remove that bracket. I noted that
That was
also.
the only bracket, yeah.
Yep.
That was the only thing I found on that. Everything else was, as we stated in the policy review.
Right. I agree, that was the one that I had on that one also. Anyone else have any comments on this one? Okay, so we can remove that bracket. We got that? Let me know because I need time to address it. Okay. All right, so on to policy 5460, and I know child abuse, maltreatment, or neglect in a domestic setting.
We got another quick one on that.
Yeah, go for it.
The end of page 2, the last paragraph under training program and dissemination of information. near the bottom, it still says optional sentence there.
Yes,
Another cleanup item that should come out. So then you're gonna have to take that bracket out as well.
correct. So you take out the optional sentence, the bracket at the end of that optional sentence. I have a couple more clerical things. When they were cleaned up, there's an extra space between the paragraph in Child Protective Services section that starts with all requests, and then the next paragraph that says the principal or designee. There's an extra space there. And there's an extra, well,
That's
if
really
these are,
good.
but if these are gonna be posted, I think
Right.
they, we need to address these things too. There's an extra space after the training programs and dissemination of information also. And then there's an additional bracket. In that same, after the optional sentence, there's an additional bracket after the optional sentence, and then 2 sentences later, there's another bracket.
At the top of the.
At the top of the next page that needs to be taken out.
After the word employees.
Yes, after the word employees. Yep. So but all the content stuff I thought was addressed. Anybody else have anything on the 5460? Should we move to the regulation for 5460? The child abuse, maltreatment, or neglect in a domestic setting regulation? It's on the agenda. Oh, it's not on the new one. Okay. Okay, sorry. You're right. On the new agenda, it's not on there. Sorry, guys. Same as you, Ann. I was looking at the older agenda because I put a couple notes on it. Okay, so we'll move to policy 8110, the school building safety. Does anybody have comments on this one? This one I don't think changed with the new update at all. I think we were pretty consistent, so I'm all set with this one. Does anybody have any? Moving around. You good with that one, everyone then? Okay. So policy 8112 for the Health and Safety Committee. On this one, there's an extra space between number 3 and the number 4 bullets in the first set of bullets.
Yeah.
It might end at the Dick, since you're on the committee, did you have any additional comments? I thought it seemed appropriate from what I know, so. Anybody else on that one? Okay, so nobody has anything else? We can move to the policy 8220 for building and grounds maintenance and inspection. Felt like all our comments were addressed in this one. Anybody? Okay. We will keep moving to the next one, policy 8508 for, let me make 8505, sorry. Yep, 8505, my mistake. For charging school meals and prohibition of against shaming.
It's completely covered, but the paragraph topic is on a different page than the paragraph itself, on the first page. So student account balance notification is on the
Oh, yeah.
first page.
It's at the bottom of the first page.
I don't know.
Okay.
I would just like to.
Yeah. At the end, before the cross-reference, there was a note from NISBA when we did the review to put the paragraph that started with building principals working with the heads of food services shall ensure, to put that before the staff note, because they wanted to make sure it's away from the section of staff on charging food as it's meant to pertain to student charging and unpaid student meal fees. So that paragraph should be moved up. The language does not need to be changed. But then just that paragraph should be moved to the section before staff. And then in the staff section, I think it should say, however, all purchases must be paid at the point of sale, comma, either cash or payment account. Because it reads, it does, it's not, yeah, it doesn't seem like it's correct. So that's just a clerical thing. I think that when we, because they had some suggestions and when we cleaned it up, it just got missed.
Actually, remaining account balances is also the.
Yeah, if they just move it down, that'll address that because the paragraph heading for that paragraph is also at the bottom of page 2 instead of at the top of page 3 above that paragraph. So it just looks like it needs to just be shifted down maybe 1 or 2 lines so that it all lines up proper.
Are you guys getting this okay?
I think so.
So just to clarify, you want staff above where it says remaining account balances?
No, no. Staff needs to go at the very end.
Right.
But there's that paragraph that says building principals, that needs to go above staff.
Because it's still part of students.
Yeah, the building principal part is still part of the student account information.
Oh, I see.
Because NISBA had a note there. But that should pertain to the student and not, so the staff is kind of a separate thing all on its own.
Gotcha.
That one little paragraph about staff. So that can go at the bottom right before the cross references.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay. Is there anything else on 8505? Okay. 8635E, Parents' Bill of Rights for Student Data and Privacy and Security. I have, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th bullet, the, change was not accepted. Should be in accordance with, and it has the 2, so that needs to be updated. And then on the Parent Bill of Rights for Student Data Privacy and Security, the third-party contractor supplement, I think we should insert our information. Obviously, we can't insert names of contractors until we have them secured. But the name of the school district, I think, should be in there, as well as where they reference our data protection officer. I think that's what DPO, right?
Jesse, we do that. We have to send this to every contractor that we work with, so we do insert all that in.
Okay,
So it's, this is just the template that we use, but we do send that off just as a reference point.
okay. All right, so then I guess that's fine. The one thing I want to make sure, because there's a big space, is, this adoption date and the things at the bottom goes for both of these two things. And then actually at the end of this one, the footer is still NISBA sample policy, so we need to get rid of that. It's like a footer.
Are the exhibits published,
I think
or
they're
just the policies?
I think the exhibits are.
And regulation.
Yeah. Huh?
And regulation.
And the regulations, all of these, right? Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's what the things I had on this one. I don't know if that adoption date, I don't know, it's just interesting the way it was sectioned off. I just want to make sure that adoption date gets on the whole thing, so. And it probably will, so. Just talking. Does anybody have any other comments on these policies, thoughts? Yes, Peter.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the third reading and pass policy items A through F.
Okay,
I'll second that.
with the clerical edits that we
With
cited?
the clerical.
Okay, that's great. We have a motion by Peter, seconded by Doug to approve these policies that are on the agenda, A through K. Do we have further discussion on that? Okay, great. So all those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That's a big bunch of work done. And sometime in February, we will be picking up the 4,000 series to hopefully complete that. We're just not sure which meeting. I guess it depends on what else we have on the agenda. So, more to come. But we'll do it again, like the special section, maybe an hour before the meeting, the regular public meeting, to make sure that it's all fit in.
And as the 4,000 series, you're halfway done.
Yes, yeah, I mean, we are pretty good on that. I think we're more than halfway on it. Feels like.
I mean, talk total.
Right,
0, 1, 2, 3,
oh,
4.
after the
Yeah,
4,000.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Gotcha,
That's the halfway point of the total review.
right, yes.
By the time we finish, we're gonna have to start.
Yeah. But we keep marching along, and I think we're making good progress, so we appreciate everybody taking their time to review the policies, because that's one of our big responsibilities as board members. All right, good piece of work. All right, on to item number 11, public comment. So now we are come to the part of the meeting for public comments are not limited to topics on this evening's agenda. So those wishing to address the board are asked to complete a request form. I have one. And just remember that you have 3 minutes per speaker. And the only one I have is Karen Frost.
Happy to get 3 minutes rather than 2. That's progress. I'll take it.
Just give me
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask on the policy items, are those district policies?
Yes, they're found on our website under the Board of Education. If you do the drop-down menu, there's board policies.
I know at the last board meeting that was virtual, comments were read about the 5-day guidelines, and having children after they come back after 5 days to be separated at lunch. I hope that's not something that we're doing. I do not support that, having the children segregated and discriminated against with everything that they've been through. We're worried about their psychological status as well as their academic. 5 days is a long time coming from the current 10 days, which originally was 14 days. The mask is off briefly for eating at school. It's good to see the test to stay, the recent announcement that came out about testing at home, just like how we did the temperature checks and the screenings every day for the whole year. So parents can do that, and then it keeps the kids in school, and the school nurse doesn't get overburdened while another way is tried to be figured out. So this is a step in the right direction. So let's practice healthy habits without going backwards and overboard. 5 days is plenty of time. If you're still not feeling well, just stay home. Same common sense with any illness like the flu prior to COVID. So I'm looking forward to, I think things are getting brighter and better. I'm not saying it's automatic, but things are definitely getting better. And so I'd like to embrace that and move forward together, because we cannot continue with fear. And we just have to live with these variants just like we do with the flu and the cold. All of our kids are in age groups where the impact of COVID on their health is very minimal overall. And in contrast, the psychological toll that the kids in all grades is huge, as well as interrupting their academics as they have to deal with all the psychological issues of the last couple of years, with the stress, the protocols, the students themselves with the whole vaxxed versus unvaxxed debate, and with restrictions and interruptions of their what's supposed to be enjoyable milestone teen and young adult life and school experiences. Coming back to the page here. One second, sorry. We have to balance all of this against all the other important things in our lives, like our family, in addition to school, work, and all of our mental health, students and parents and families. I would like to say that it was great to be a part of the first community engagement meeting, to work together as parents, community members with the school. That is a recipe for success, a nice little triangle, as we talked about, or as my team talked about. And I'm looking forward to the next meeting. And I would like to say that I feel like since I started coming to the meetings in July, there was a lot of tension from this end and this end. So it was like two magnets repelling one another. And it was very unenjoyable for you guys, and it was very unenjoyable for all of us out here. But the last two in-person board meetings, I felt like there was a little bit of a change. I feel like everybody wants to be heard on both ends. And so, we can make progress together, because that's the only way to make progress is together. And I know that's 3 minutes. I don't know if there's other changes. That's great. If there's any other positive changes, I don't know about them. But 3 minutes is a great one. Because at first the guidelines to make comments, but no dialogue or response was very frustrating for myself and everyone here, and it may have been frustrating for you guys. I think it might have been more frustrating for everybody sitting here. And I was telling somebody, just imagine how frustrating it is if you guys can't understand where a lot of the parents were coming from. Imagine your teen coming to you and saying, "Geez, Mom, I really need to talk to you." And you say, "You have 2 minutes." And then they're speaking about things that are emotional, that they're frustrated about, that they're looking for answers, they're looking for help, they feel lost. And then when the time's up, somebody says, "Thank you for your comments," and then you're done. And then to do that over and over and over again is very frustrating. So I'm hoping that the board met and realized some of that, and realized too that even through the frustration, because, when you scream, nobody wants to listen. But if you talk, we can listen to one another. Because it's not productive or positive to go about communicating that way. So I just want to say that I'm happy to see that start to change in here. And I'm hoping that all of that continues so that we can all work together and actually, be on the same team with one another. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just make two observations on school tool? I know I didn't fill out a thing, but I didn't think of it until I had been done speaking.
Yeah, and we'll get a form from you afterwards,
Yeah.
just so we can have it on record.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Come on.
Just, the first thing I noticed was that how
Can
low.
you just state your name?
Sorry.
Just for
Vanessa
procedure.
Salisbury, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
The percentage seemed extremely low in regards to how many people viewed a progress report or a report card, and I just feel like that doesn't seem realistic. And one thing that I noticed was that on a mobile device, if you try, I had to do some emails to figure this out, but if you try to view a progress report or a report card, I guess in a PDF version or a printable version of some sort, you're unable to. It just kind of shows general squares, and it does say, is a pleasure to have in class, or really needs to do his homework, or something of that nature. But you can't, I don't know if School Tool is counting a view of a report card or a progress report as the PDF popping up, because how many people do it on their mobile device? I do, and I do it a lot. So, and then the other thing I noticed the other day was A Day, B Day is like always a thing on a Sunday. But when you go to the schedule on a Sunday, it's blank, I guess, because there's no school, right? Right. So I don't know, maybe there's a way to say Monday schedule on Sunday so that we know A Day or B Day. Because is it on a calendar somewhere? Because I can't find it. On a calendar, okay.
It's
So-
on that general,
I can show you, I got it on
Okay.
on the general district calendar, that's like the one page, they're color coded.
I don't know why. Okay, I go on the website all the time. I'm like, let me see if I can find it, or then we say who had gem or
It's
whatever
like a
they
one
have.
page,
But
it's a PDF, it's a one page, it just lists the whole calendar, and they're
Okay.
color coded.
I'll have to look
Yeah.
again. If there's any way for School Tool, that's always my go-to. So
Yeah,
but
okay, that's good.
I think, and then the committee is great. We had a great time. Dr. Fantini did a great job putting it together and kind of it was good. He's a smart guy. Thank you.
Thank you. Smart guy, got it.
I know my children will bring me their Chromebook, but I'll say, listen, I'm not gonna look it up, okay, because I'm busy like getting dinner.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
You can put your Chromebook
I'll put it right on
over
here.
and show me, so I don't know if you like
Yes.
children accessing it on their Chromebook.
Yeah, we can look into that, those are good points, thank you. I think we've got that noted to check into. Appreciate that. All right, we'll just collect that from you for the record, but then
Yeah.
afterwards, thank you. Terry? Just checking. All right, and that moves us to item number 12, the board members report. Jackie, do you want to start, please?
I just wanted to talk about the community committee that we, oh my gosh, I just lost the whole. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm on the committee and I just lost the name of it. The community engagement committee, I think it's so important for, like Karen was saying, for the whole, for everybody, for the board members, for past board members, for community leaders, parents. It was such a great meeting. We had a really nice turnout, and I look forward to seeing where it's going to take us. But I do think it's important to idea share, and I appreciate you all for being there. It's important that it's not just us because we're on the board. I want to hear from you guys, and I think that's going to bring more of a dialogue to the community. So I think that's important. So thank you. And I also just wanted to say, because I've never mentioned it before, the Celebrations of Success videos that Brian does, they're awesome. He does a really great job. And I think that's also really cool for people to see. I look at the website, but some people might not. And it's nice to see that. I just like it. So. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. Samantha?
I was just gonna say that I'm hoping that, my son Matthew's robotics team that won this past Saturday at the Camillus, New York, hopefully they'll make it in me.
I'm guessing you're gonna be in the next one, yeah. I saw it on social media.
Samantha?
I actually, I don't have a ton, but I do like to see that, like, I don't do a lot of social media, and I have like the world's worst phones all the time. And I don't, like, I'm one of those awful people who doesn't sort of, I get to school tool and I'm like, I don't know, I'm supposed to, and then I like forget for like 3 months. So you guys kind of make me want to be a little less 1987. So I'm gonna try and do that, so that's number one. I can have that talk after. So that's number one, is that, you know, it's a good reminder that there are all these tools, sorry, wordplay intended, but there are these tools that we all should be using. And I will try and do better. I will try and get a new phone, and I will try and engage better with that. Then the other thing I did want to say, you know, I appreciate so much the community engagement work that you guys are doing. My life is chaos. I can't wait to see what you guys bring. And I think it's just a really good scenario where it was like, here's a need, you know, here's a plan to fulfill it. And we're not gonna hang around and we're not gonna let the perfect be, and we're gonna get it started and put a good framework on it. And even just what you got back from what you guys did the other day was, I was kind of going through all the slides, like, oh, there, it seems like it's a foundation for a really good process. And I appreciate the sort of, you know, from the idea phase to the implement phase is like, it's nice to see that where it's not like a slog. So I just want to congratulate you guys on that. And you know, like I do almost all the time, thank Mr. Dodge and all the bus drivers for getting my kids to school and back in the crazy roads. We had some fun on Snyder's Corner Road today, so I'm gonna pass it on, but it's an amazing job to do.
Thank you, Samantha. Doug?
I also enjoyed the Community Engagement Committee meeting. I thought that was excellent, well done. And the presentation that the superintendent made at the beginning in terms of our norms and what's to be expected, and more or less set the ground rules, I thought was an excellent start. I'm really looking forward to the conversations with the other members of our team. Karen was on the team, and I appreciate you starting that, Jim, and spending the time with us. On another issue, a sensitive one in terms of our students. Our school psychologists, our counselors, and our SEL people have never been more important than they are right now with some of our students. If we're a microcosm of national statistics, 4 or 5 of our students have lost either a parent or a caregiver or someone close to them. And for our professionals, I hope they've identified, or at least able to identify those students and to give them the support that they need and the help that they need to get through this critical time. I know all of our students, many of our students, I should say, need assistance to get through and get out of this whole COVID mindset. And these students, I don't know if we have any, but again, if we're a microcosm of national statistics, we have 4 or 5 of them in our district. I would like to see them be paid some special attention. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Doug. Megan?
Thank you, Doug, because I think probably there's actually more than 4 or 5 in our district, honestly, to be honest about it. We live in a balancing act for people on both sides of a debate. And so there are people who haven't directly been affected by the severity of the life that we're living in. And we have people that are directly affected by the severity of the life that we're living in. And in this district, we have students who are going through that severity as we speak, and we have teachers who are going through that severity as we speak. And so the balancing act is trying to keep everything level for everyone involved. And it's not easy. So I am sending my thoughts and prayers to everyone who is having a hard time today. I am looking forward to Cabaret. It's coming up. I think before our next meeting, I know that the students who are involved in Cabaret are working really hard on that. So I'm really looking forward to hearing them sing loud and proud. Music is good for the soul. So looking forward to that. And just anybody who's having a hard time, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help.
Thank you, Megan. Ann?
Just a couple quick things. By way of clarification, the time period was always 3 minutes. That wasn't something that we changed. It was always 3 minutes. That's just by way of clarification. That was not something, and we nitpick a lot of things, but that wasn't one of them. If you haven't had a chance to, especially with some of the items that you folks are bringing up, listen to the podcast about the SEL. It was really, really good. So I would highly recommend that if you haven't had a chance to listen to that yet. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug, for bringing up the mental health issue. I think it's a critical item today. I think it's always been a critical item. And it's something that I regret when we had budget cuts quite a few years ago that we had to let go of the line for the school psychologist. I hope that doesn't happen again. I actually would like to see more presentations to parents by the district about recognizing mental health issues in your children and what the resources are to handle that, to help parents deal with their kids at home. Finally, I thought the high school presentation was excellent. And it's good to see that things are moving along. Still a lot of work to be done, especially these days with all the COVID remote issues, which we fortunately haven't had too many of them lately. But remote learning is, even though it is convenient, it is not good for the socialization of students. And I think that's reflected in the discussion that we have today with the high school administration. So it's not over yet. We still have a lot to do and a lot of support to provide for the students. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. I did want to take a moment to thank everyone who participated in the community engagement committee. I think we really appreciate that you stepped up, and we appreciate your time and effort that you're putting into this. And I'm looking forward to some really good outcomes from that. So thank you guys for all participating. And I did too want to give a shout out to the podcast because I think it's such a good venue to get a little bit deeper into certain subjects. Sometimes there are topics of interest like this last one with the SEL, but it's also like sometimes it's really just nice, like feel good stuff. Like when we interviewed the, I think it was a soccer team this fall. So they're just all really good, well done, and just a nice thing to listen to, and I enjoy them very much. So I just wanted to point that out, and I hope people are enjoying listening to them also, the community as a whole. Okay, so that concludes our board member reports. Brings us to item number 13. A recommendation to move to executive session to discuss the matters leading to the appointment, employment, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Megan's making a motion, seconded by Samantha. All those in favor to move to executive session? Aye. So moved. We will not need to come back to public session, so thank you guys very much for coming. Have a good night. Thanks, Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you.